So it has been on the agenda for 25 years, and Foreign Affairs Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu was the chairperson. And for the past 16 years, I've been the deputy chairperson. We had a great day, and on October the 1st, we celebrated the 70th anniversary of the European Council. It's an important institution for us. The Foreign Affairs Ministry is in contact with them for long years because the Human Rights Court also is working with them. It's in Strasbourg. Make sure you also visited. Our former president Abdullah Gül also said that a European Council is a diplomacy school because the grounds it's done on is the human rights, democracy, and rule of law. And as a representative of that institution, maybe I can say I've been hosting you in this room, and I know I spoke a little long, but now I would like to leave the floor to our panelists. You have come from Çorum, apologies. Kastamonu, Çorum, Yozgat, they're close cities to one another, apologies. So maybe we should leave you the floor, Mr. Rector, and then we will continue. Hello, my name is Ali Osman Öztürk. I am pleased to hear the introductory remarks from our moderator, and we once again remembered that the local diplomacy is at the core of many discussions. I studied political science and I had my PhD in North Carolina State University. I was a fellow there, and then I worked for 5 years in Ankara, and maybe I tasted a little bit of the central government. In between 2017 and 19, I was the coordinator of the public diplomacy coordinator of the presidency, and as Mr. Binali Yildirim stated, we run these activities as necessary, and the agenda of the country was very busy due to the heinous coup attempt, and public diplomacy I could see wasn't being able to be practiced under hectic conditions, and I am now the rector of the Hitit University. Thank you very much, Miss Doğanoğlu. I'm Bülent Özcan. Both of our last names are the same, but we are not related. But we work at the same institution, Foreign Ministry of Turkey, EU Affairs Department. It's an institution created during the new executive presidential system, and the main purpose of our institution is the coordination processes for the EU accession process for Turkey. This is a mission that works both on the technical and also the site-related issues. I started working as a deputy expert, and now I am the European projects general manager. And our main mission is to make sure that the resources allocated for Turkey are used as effectively as possible, and in this regard run activities. And today we are here to contribute to the Marmara Urban Forum. Thank you, welcome, good morning everyone. I'm coming from the Foreign Ministry Diplomacy Academy unit. I'm the chair of the unit. I've been working at the department for 8 years, and I am also a professor at Ankara University, the public diplomacy department. And we previously cooperated for many projects with Marmara Municipalities Union, but we at our department rather are more interested in the training of our people. For example, last week we had our colleagues from the other department for the training, and also the bureaucrats working in other units and institutions receive certain trainings, the foreign diplomats, also international diplomats. So we are trying our best to contribute to the efforts by way of delivering training to our own people, to our own staff, and also to all interested. Maybe we should stay closer to the microphones. Okay. Okay, then we should start with you, and then leave the floor to our bureaucrats, and and then I will make the closing, and then maybe Q&A, and we may leave the floor to some other distinguished participants in the audience. If you wish, you can take this stand. Otherwise, you can, if you wish, you may sit where you are. Well, I think this is a sincere atmosphere, so I should make my presentation from here. So we're talking about the rise of cities. The 21st centuries show us that the cities are rising, but that structure of the cities and the ability of those cities to produce solutions will be our main topics of discussion. With globalization, the importance of cities is started to gain more and more importance. So in the 21st century, we have had some maybe good aspects, but also some bitter aspects. Globalization brought us maybe a much more, we were hoping to transit to a much more peaceful period, but then we ended up and found ourselves in a world where we have invisible walls. Actually, we hit. And at this forum, at Marmara Urban Forum, there are many subjects addressed, and I know that those subjects are selected not because they're good titles or sound good, but these are the realities of the world, and they come to our way no matter where we are in the world. So diplomacy, actually before the globalization, it was practiced by some actors in form of maybe propaganda, and then it come to be practiced by multi-actors when we are in a period where when we have invisible walls. So the soft power has come to be used. It is not like the hard power, which is related with more concrete form of power, weapons, military, but it is called a soft, abstract, but also as much effective as some other elements of power being used to solve certain problems. And also the countries can affect their public opinions through attraction points. And rather than choosing the challenging one, it is for choosing what's more effective, maybe, and also easy. In soft power, we also have public diplomacy embedded. So we see that other than the formal, official actors and elements, Civilian actors and also non-government actors or supra-government uh, actors are being involved. So any kind of actor is effective, and it's a field of interaction. Uh, we can talk about good or bad things. For example, YouTube was invented in a garage through sharing pictures, and also maybe the Indian professors uh, used the European clinical tools and did some operations in the USA and used the technological advancements and saved the people's lives. This is about creating attraction and creating the attractive atmospheres, utilizing the tools at hand and drawing attention and bringing the relevant actors together to solve a problem. So you talked about your institution. It was founded in 1948. It has changed throughout the years, and now it is uh, addressed by civilian actors, for example, from Kosovo, from White Russia, from Belarus, from other countries. We see participation into that institution, and we can see how things can work out. So the non-governmental actors, the civilian actors, and their participation and expressing things is, of course, not that easy, because we're not talking about something tangible there. um, it is maybe difficult to explain it through simple examples, but I have a little story to share. For example, for Turkey, the success of Turkish Airlines. It's a know-how of years, and it's a success story, and in the world it is recognized, and many compared to many airline companies, it's envied by the others, and it represents our flag across the world and represents the quality of services. So, such an important company from the beginning to the end in its design, the public diplomacy actors were involved, but a local, for example, actor can destroy everything. For example, the airport taxi drivers. We have great pilots, we have great experience in Turkish Airlines, so everything is good, but some passenger flies and everything is okay, and they land and they take a taxi at the airport, and the behaviors of that taxi driver may destroy everything. So it means that in the global diplomacy network, the local actors are stronger than we think. A journalist, an opinion leader, or a local actor, if they welcome someone with unacceptable behaviors, they can negatively impact a 60-year-old good experience. So that's why local diplomacy and local actors have become very important, especially for the metropolitan cities like Istanbul, London, and Tokyo, and we can talk about many other cities. Everyone is now involved in the local diplomacy network. Even if we are aware or not, we are all local actors. When you go out on the street now, for example, yes, we have our mayors, we have that extravaganza here. We can talk about the universities, the trade unions, the commerce unions. Yes, we can talk about everyone, but I have to say that anyone on the street, a student, a senior lady, or a street vendor, and everyone. So it means that there is the butterfly effect in public diplomacy, and now it's time for us to be aware of these all. and I attach great importance to Marmara Urban Forum for that reason. I would like to talk about a couple of important elements regarding local diplomacy, and my other colleagues will talk about the practical aspects of things. So if we consider local diplomacy in terms of its instruments and think about what its main instruments are, I can see investment and economic promotions and the creation of attraction points. So big six like groups, I mean, from London to Tokyo, the cities of developed countries have their aura, their atmosphere, which was created maybe with the attraction of commerce. And they are even promoted more, maybe with some events, for example, the Premier League games or exhibitions or fairs. So these cities affect the economies and also trade, and in terms of multi partner diplomacy, I guess that the financial dimension of things should be involved. So one of the dimensions, pillars of that is the financial pillar. The cities who are weak in terms of financial dimension, I believe, will not be able to open up some space for themselves in terms of being an effective public diplomacy actor. And everything has a cost, I have to say, and there are some costs for the invisible actions. Uh, you may want to establish a factory, you need to have your feasibility studies. An airport, then you will have to, of course, have your feasibility studies. So, okay, the costs are known, but what about the other instruments to be used for promotion? What about the coefficient? What about the other actors involved? So when these are involved, it is not possible for you to use everything in the same fashion, and that's why they have, even if they have one target, um, they have a common ground. They are profit oriented. It could be FDA, foreign direct investment. So if you have profitability in the attraction powers, the local strength increases. Why is London the center in many terms across the world? Because they have this strength, and why couldn't we? We need to talk about it. And the universities are also attraction points. So for the rich, for the poor, maybe the rich send their children to the schools where education quality is high because they have money. But also there are some other students, other children who are smart, but who cannot maybe directly go. And there are some centers they go on a voluntary basis, and they accept these students, admit these students, and it also creates that attraction point. And when someone goes back to their cities, uh, we then won't need to explain those cities, our cities, to the people living in other places. So when we look at the countries where they have these attraction points in terms of universities, we see the big six, the advanced developed countries and cities, and these networks, even if we spend billions of dollars, cannot be created. That's why I don't know how long it will take for us to make our universities as highly qualified as theirs. I think we still should consider it as an item for investment and finance education. So the third one is tourism and promotional activities. For example, Antalya, Izmir, Istanbul are in the cities in the foreground, but in the world, when we have a look, we will see Cape Town. It's on the tip of the South Africa. It's difficult to arrive there, but it's a rising trend because it offers things to people, maybe getting rid of the gray atmosphere of Berlin and the cloudy weather of London. They say that come here and see a sunny day, and there's also the faith tourism. So investment, education, and tourism are the three pillars for these attraction points, creating such attraction points. And other things can be plus points. For example, the Olympics, big scale organizations. For example, the world singing contests. Eurovision, for example, was a very important one. So no matter where we are, such organizations are very important. The fashion weeks, the gastronomy events, and so on. The list can go on. So these three things, finance, is very important in local diplomacy, and education is a must-have. It's a sine qua non. And also tourism. I don't know if we will get the floor again later on, but without further ado, I would like to tell a couple of other things. Talk about the local diplomacy's best actors, best players. Even if local diplomacy should be independent and autonomous, it shouldn't be so much far-fetched from the public diplomacy understanding of the countries. So the countries regionally or at the international platforms somehow have their strategies and positions. So what we call local diplomacy should be included into the general framework also. For example, we have 81 provinces in Turkey, and if every city says I will do it and the other one says I'll do that, then it will be of ambiguity, and there will exist some confusion. We should do it commonly so that we can cover some mileage. For example, the UK is doing it for years in terms of broadcasting. They have a domination maybe through BBC, and also the reflection of that locally in London. So London and partners and their voluntary based or activities. So this is hand in hand with broadcasting, and there's also the cultural activities, but also the Premier League. The football culture in the world is experienced, some say, there in the best way, and they have 43 giant universities, and they have a great network. They have a great network, and many of them are located in London. So British public diplomacy and London local diplomacy is correlated. They're not falling far apart from one another. So there could be different political cultures, different perspectives, but the country administration and also the local administrations are in consensus. They have defined their framework, and this ensures an incremental and arithmetical added value. So we can talk about London, Paris, Tokyo, and other cities. But for now, I should leave it here, and maybe if I have the floor, I can add some other things.
Thank you for all the explanation around education and the comparisons you made. Now I'd like to make a comment on it. On October the 1st, there is this anniversary of European Council. There was a ceremony. It was in the Opera building, and there was this General Secretary of the European Council. Following his opening speech, there was Filippo González, and he was invited there. And there was General Secretary of the UN. An astronaut also took over. Then came the democracy and human rights competition of Council of Europe, and the awards of the young people were offered to them. There was a young girl from Turkey who got awarded in the field of poem, and then came the speech of the General Secretary of the Council of Europe, and then the Netherlands singer who won Eurovision this year took the stage. Then came the speech of Macron, the French president, and then there was this closing ceremony. So the flow of the meeting was so colorful that I believe it was an investment into human beings. As for education, you know, the astronaut was there to inform people about education, and Eurovision is about the culture, the exchange of culture between different countries, and we were in the opera building of Strasbourg. It's a very old building, so it definitely corresponds to all the points you made. I think nothing is coincidence. You are making these comments from a diplomatic point of view, taking the urban space into consideration. Thank you very much for all your remarks. If you would like to make additional remarks, the floor will be yours. The floor is all ours. Now I'd like to give the floor to Bülent Özcan. Please proceed. Mr. Chairperson, thank you very much. Mr. Professor made a great perspective, and he eased our job so that we can have a parallel speech. We are going through a very important process in terms of urbanization. Following the Second World War, there has been a flow from the rural areas to the urban areas. And 15 years later, we will have a population of 9 billion people. And 70% of these people will be living in the metropolitan cities. And there will be almost 30 metropolitan cities. Probably there were only 2-3 mega cities following the Second World War. There was this New York and Tokyo, but the numbers will further increase. Now that we have this urbanization in our lives, now that we have so many metropolitan cities in our lives, there will be some problems correlated to that. And solving out the solutions and sharing these solutions or seeking solutions to them requires local diplomacy in the end. Previously, we had the diplomats, and the role of the diplomats was highly important. However, nowadays we have diplomacy in our pockets through smartphones. There is the social media, emails, YouTube surrounding our lives, so we live in a constantly flowing atmosphere. Now the diplomacy between different ministries cannot be enough for us. Of course, some sensitive issues will be still diplomatic. However, the cooperation between provinces and the exchange of information between provinces will go through local diplomacy. In one sense, this is an important point to make. And in this process, the European Union journey of Turkey promoted our perspective, and it offered a huge window of opportunity for us. In our journey, we have supported our provinces through different tools. One is related to the development of urban policies. In our European Union journey, we have supported all the local administrators and we have guided them. And one of the most important activities that we have undertaken is related to the development of urban policies. I think this is highly important. Inclusivity, participation of the civil society do matter all. Setting up city councils and strengthening them, endorsing them is a great part of this journey. The dialogue between the city actors and the academia, private industry is ever increasing. In this process, we believe we need to have an agenda in place in developing the urban agenda. So you should be able to communicate yourself very well. All the municipalities do have a strategic plan. However, it should not be about the best documentation. You should be able to follow it up, and you should be able to take action based on the papers. The policies of the provinces should be developed by the local administrators, and they should work hand in hand with the citizens. In developing the policies, you should be able to share your policies with the citizens, and you should be able to communicate what you are doing. In one sense, you should be able to walk the talk. Secondly, it's not only about creating the agenda and making policies. You should be able to go to the field yourself. You should be able to take action, and you should be able to walk the talk. And you have to be involved in all your activities, covering all the citizens of the province. And you should be able to generate information out of your activities and come up with new policies accordingly. Therefore, you should learn by taking action, you should learn from your experiences, and you should be able to contribute to new policies. Last but not least, in doing so, I believe all the policies should be used by the administrators. And in the end, you should be able to go for some activities which would make the city more colorful, including education, sports, and the rest. In terms of policies, with regards to European Union journey, it displays the importance placed on the cities. However, we should not adopt the European Union perspective merely. I believe we should adopt a broader perspective. One of the most important tools is making use of the resources afforded to Turkey in the best way possible. That is why local diplomacy and reinvigorating local diplomacy offers great opportunities to us. One of the most important support comes from sister cities. We would like to attach more importance on the concept of sister cities, and one of them is related to twinning program between Turkey and European Union. We hold this project as the European Union, and our main goal is to enable the exchange of information between different cities. Irrespective of any topic, the cities might share any experience, including the waste management, rural development, urban development, so on and so forth. Therefore, the cities from Turkey work hand in hand with the sister cities from Europe and exchange information and come up with solutions by making use of experiential learning. One of the most important components of this project is to increase the efficiency of sister cities in Turkey, because one of the problems in Turkey is as follows. Well, there is this web of sister cities, and each and every municipality holds a sister city. However, when we talk to our mayors as to what they are doing with the sister cities, we see that they don't do enough, and they don't put enough efforts into the exchange of information with the sister cities. There is no infrastructure in place to do so. None of the local administrations have a strategy in Turkey in an attempt to work hand in hand with the sister cities. They don't know what kind of information they're going to share and what kind of actions they're going to take. Therefore, it stands to reason that we need to change our perspective towards the sister cities. We have begun to take care of this problem, and now we would like to adopt the vision of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and carry their perspective into the sister city project. And we should connect local diplomacy with the national diplomacy in Turkey. However, with regard to local diplomacy, we don't have this project merely. There are thousands of projects. In 2002, we began to make use of the European Union funds in the local level. And since then, we have received quite a huge amount of money, and we have worked in coordination with different cities. I'm not only talking about municipalities. It also covers the chambers, the civil organizations within the city, and the academia. We have made use of the required resources in an attempt to support all the related shareholders. And next comes investments. What would make a city stronger is investment in the end. In this sense, European Union has endorsed cities and has allocated huge resources to endorse the cities. First and foremost comes climate change and environment to us. So we have supported more than 100 projects in an attempt to solve the problems of the cities, and we have been operational in Erzurum, Çorum, Çanakkale, Kuşadası, you name it, in various cities in Turkey. And we have initiated various infrastructure projects in all these cities. We're not only trying to solve the problems that are related to infrastructure, but we are also trying to connect the cities. And I believe the connection of cities is of utmost importance to us. For instance, the speedy railway system between Ankara and Istanbul is a project that we have invested into. And in materializing this project, EU funds have been used between Halkalı and Kapıkule. Another railroad project has been initiated, and EU has funded this project. Therefore, the mobility between the cities is a topic that we attach huge importance on. As for the European Union, mobility is of utmost importance because whenever we come together with different parties in Europe, we find out that mobility is gaining in ground. The cities in Europe are small and they are very much integrated to one another. So you might visit two countries, just one train ticket, and you might visit 7 to 8 cities. Given this case in Europe, I believe we in Turkey are lagging behind in terms of mobility. We are still not in the level that we desire to be. I believe in this sense it is highly important to support the infrastructure of Turkey as a policy instrument. Moreover, the cooperation between cities and the diplomacy between the cities need to be supported through some different elements with the funds of EU. And one of them is related to education, youth and sports. There is this program, Erasmus+. Erasmus+ is a project that is mainly focused on the exchange of students. So one student visits another city and gets enrolled in a university over there and then comes back. So Erasmus Plus is just one of the 12 programs. It's not merely related to the exchange of students. It also covers the adults as well. It offers support on vocational training, and it supports the mobility of the youth who are between 13 to 30 years of age, and it supports the young people. It supports higher education in terms of the exchange of students and exchange of academicians. And it endorses the cooperation between academia and the private industries. Erasmus is a program of 15 billion euros. 33 countries benefit from it. And now we are moving through a new period in Erasmus Plus. It's going to be a program of 30 billion euros. As for the people that this program address, it covers people of all vocations. So I believe Erasmus Plus program is a huge opportunity that the municipalities have to grasp. And it's a great opportunity in terms of coming up with solutions to common problems. Irrespective of the topics, you might develop projects and work hand in hand with the other municipalities located in Europe. There are some municipalities that make use of this program very well, and there are some others who have never ever benefited from this program. Probably you see the slides behind, and these are related to the exemplary projects of Erasmus+. Moreover, there are some other special programs. For instance, there is this Horizon 2020 program. Within Horizon 2020 program, innovation and R&D come together and offers great support to the local municipalities. This program is operational in more than 30 countries, and it has a budget of 80 billion euros, and it covers technology, innovation, and the other related fields. There is one single field which is closely related to local administrations. It is smart cities. So in an attempt to further scatter smart cities, you might make use of this program, Horizon 2020, and there is one call. If you would like to work hand in hand with the other cities located in Europe and make use of technology, then you can resort to this program, and the program is still open. Bursa, Antalya, İzmir, İstanbul, Eskişehir municipalities and some other local administrations make use of this Horizon 2020 program very well, and they are highly involved in this program. These programs do have a huge budget, so the budget will be almost 5 to 8 billion euros. As a conclusion, Turkey's European Union journey in terms of developing the cities and opening up the cities to the external world offers great opportunities. Developing policies, designing the policies, are highly important in these programs. So I think the provinces, the cities might benefit hugely from these programs and might benefit from the exchange of information between different municipalities. It is highly important that the municipalities take ownership of this process, and the national diplomacy is supported through local diplomacy. Thank you very much. It marks the end of my remarks in the very first round. Thank you very much. Based on the information you have offered to us, I would like to make a contribution. Antalya. The province of Antalya is the capital of tourism in Turkey, and probably each and every person knows Antalya. It attracts almost 16 million tourists, and I believe we will attract 16 million tourists this year. Tourism is not merely about sun and the sea. There's this football and sports and world stars who promote Antalya. So we make huge investments over there. I'm a tourism person, and let me tell you what we have done. In an attempt to make the Italians and Turkish people come together, we have invested in culture. Back then, we had some investments, and the Italian stone is very much valuable, and Turkish stone is also very much valuable. The Turkish marble is very much valuable. Around Isparta, there is a special marble, and the marble that is extracted from Isparta reaches China, and it turns into square marbles, and in China it gets packed and it is transformed to the other countries. It is transferred to the other countries. I think it is connected to the concept that you have talked about, the smart cities, because the tourism of Antalya, the huge tourism capacity of Antalya did not generate overnight. First and foremost, a destination was opened up in Antalya, and we came up with a system, and we said once you go to the hotel, you will not have to pay for anything. I mean, everything will be covered with one single price, we said. We are still sister cities with Lebanon and the other neighboring countries which supported us when we focused on Antalya as a tourism destination. The cooperation was not only between the municipalities, as you might. The municipalities are political elements in the end, and the mayor will change each and every 5 years. However, it is highly important to make the system sustainable. We are still sister cities with Lüneburg, and now we work on the level of the universities and the NGOs. The cooperation is not merely related to the municipalities. We work hand in hand with the other NGOs located over there, and I believe we are working in the field of human abuse, and we have set up some associations which tackle human abuse. There is one single city in China, which is our sister city. We hold an international movie festival, and we screen the cities that come from those sister cities. For instance, whenever we have festivals in Antalya, we invite artists from sister cities. In Antalya, we focus on yacht tourism, and we worked with Miami in this yacht festival, because I think Miami and Antalya could complete one another. The most luxurious yachts in Antalya were sold to the investors who live in Miami, and I think this contributes to the economy in the end. That's why I believe sister city programs are very much valuable to us. Smart cities is over, and now it is time to move on with bright cities, right? So with the endorsement you offer to us, both the civil society and the municipalities get supported, and even the women entrepreneurs get supported through the local administrations. Thank you very much, both on behalf of the municipalities and women entrepreneurs. Now the floor will be Mesut Özcan's. The floor is yours. Thank you, Gaye. Well, there's this advantage and disadvantage of being the last speaker. Some remarks have already been made, and I think it might be a disadvantage. Gaye defines Antalya as the capital of tourism. If you ask the Russian people, they believe that The capital city of Turkey is Antalya. They don't know about Ankara at all. They just know Antalya. And Antalya is very much connected. As for Ankara, we call it the most disconnected capital of the world. So Antalya is becoming a capital, so to speak. In my speech, I will have some general remarks, and I will talk about my own field of expertise. I will mainly talk about the general diplomacy, the trends in Turkey, the upcoming trends, and what kind of a role the local diplomacy might play in this picture. So I guess I will summarize all those points in 10 minutes. The general diplomacy is mostly between the states, and the states are the main actors in international relations. There are the statesmen and the bureaucrats and the ministries in place. They are functional in diplomacy. The diplomats or the other public institutions are very much functional, and it's a top-down diplomacy. So the politicians make decisions and the citizens have to follow them up. So I think it's mostly about high politics. National security and the territorial integrity of the state are some of the most outstanding topics in the politics. And the ordinary citizens are not that much interested in these fields, or they don't have a right to say and to speak about these topics. That is why it's a closed field of politics. However, I believe now we're going through a stage of transformation. In today's world, the traditional diplomacy is still ongoing. However, there are some new trends that are coming up. The politics today is not merely related to the politicians. There are various actors involved in diplomacy today, and it's not a top-down process, it's a bottom-up process as well. And what are the new trends? If you look into the new trends and ask ourselves what the new trends are, first and foremost, diplomacy is being globalized. Let me put it that way. The national state is not the main determinant actor anymore. And there are new actors playing out. The states, the diplomats are not only the actors on the scene. However, there are NGOs, be it student groups or women organizations coming into the scene. I think such actors are gaining in ground, and they are getting more and more important in politics. Moreover, I believe now we're going through a more participatory process. Now the process is not a top-down one, but a bottom-up one. And in this diplomatic process, the cities are gaining in ground. As for the diplomatic trends, media is getting more and more important. The social media and the traditional media are more in use. And I believe we are going through a more open society. Now, on a momentary basis, you can follow up the activities. Let me give you an example. Trump is using social media all the time, and whenever we meet our American correspondents, they say that they follow up Twitter early in the morning, and then they take action accordingly. In this sense, I believe social media is being used on a more and more active basis. Another important topic that attracts our attention is that there's this regionalization in place. So what I mean is that the societies or the countries that share similar problems make them work together. Another point is becoming expert. I mean, in diplomacy, you need to become an expert. There is this environment diplomacy, armed diplomacy, tourism diplomacy, civil society diplomacy. So you have to become expert in all these fields. And Antalya is a common example in this sense. Some cities and some countries, some cities are getting more important than the country itself, and they are becoming a brand. For instance, in Turkey, there is this Antalya example, and there are some other examples in the other cities as well.
And in some places, we see it unfolding in form of energy more, and in some other cities, we see the environment is very much effective. And in this regard, where do the cities stand? I'll talk about that a little bit and try to wrap up. Well, the professor talked about it, and my colleague talked about it. There is a rapid urbanization ongoing in the world. Maybe in Africa it's not over 50% yet, but across the world in many cities we see that more than 50% of the population live in urban areas. And in Turkey, according to the latest data, the percentage of urbanization is 91% of the people now in Turkey, for example, live in urban cities. And we're talking about a world where we have the mega cities, and the nation states are still the main actors, but we also know that we're going through a period when the cities are interacting with one another more and affected by one another more and more. So this is similar to the pre-nation state period, so empires period. Actually, we talked about London, Istanbul, New York, but in the past, Cairo, Delhi, like cities, they used to be also cosmopolitan cities, multicultural cities, and they had maybe more connections with the other metropolitan cities as compared to the country itself. Maybe London and New York are connected to one another with common problems, common issues, and that's why in our day also we have more and more interactions among cities as such, and it concerns us. Well, the effects of it, of course, concern us. There are local differences, but also those metropolitan cities also share a lot. There are similar issues. For example, transportation is one issue, and the other one is the usage of main sources, for example, water, and also the air pollution. And such issues are common, and that's why at this point such cities should be cooperating more and more, and the interaction among big cities in this regard is very important. And when you visit other cities of the world, you will see that the metropolitan cities start resembling one another. When you go to Shanghai, you will see that rather than Beijing, it looks more like London or New York. So maybe it doesn't make sense initially when we think that Shanghai looks like New York. It should maybe we say look like other cities in China, like Beijing. But still, when we have a look at the general situation, we see that Shanghai resembles more like New York. So that's why such interaction, such contacts among such cities are the issues which become more and more important, and whether we want it or not, they come in further contact. And of course, this gives way to some other needs, and it brings us to how local diplomacy can play a role. To solve those complicated problems, we need more diplomatic cooperation among cities, like we have in Marmara Urban Forum or Marmara Municipalities Union. So similar forms of cooperation will work for the transfer of experience across the world, and by twinning projects, by benchmarking, by sharing good examples, good practices, and not to repeat the same mistakes, we have opportunities actually laid ahead of us. And there are some common steps we can take to address the technology, because technology is growing more and more important in terms of addressing the problems we have. So it's also an important element to expand the scope of inter-cities cooperation. Another trend is to become participatory, so the municipalities will be the places and are the places where the democracy is closest to the people. So the mayors or the assembly chairpersons have direct contact with the people, and it will help in terms of participation by the people. And this is an important opportunity for us to overcome the obstacles ahead of us. And the metropolitan cities, the mega cities, yes, they grow more and more resembled to one another, but there are, of course, some other cultural elements. When we say New York or Shanghai or Cairo or Istanbul or New Delhi, there are certain cultural elements, a set of cultural elements. That's why when we are cooperating and running diplomatic activities among cities, we should always bear in mind the cultural elements and recognize those as we sustain our relations, so that the people who come to Istanbul, for example, can have a taste of it, because when people visit Istanbul, they come to Istanbul to feel the atmosphere there. And as said before, such cities are cosmopolitan cities where different lives coexist. That's why the similar actors should be in contact but also recognize one another's differences. That's why, in this regard, the local diplomacy can work efficiently when we are living in a period as the cities are growing and expanding bigger and bigger. The technology helps for that, the transportation helps for that. That's the trend, and we need to take steps towards that trend. And Istanbul is a point actually which crosses them, and it's a cross point. And I believe this forum is a good example to talk about all these subjects. Thank you very much. To be timely, effective, I will briefly share my presentation. I have the full version. Anyone interested can get the full version from Marmara Urban Forum organizers. Can we have my PowerPoint slides on the screen? I have a presentation talking about what the European Council does for the sustainable cities. I prepared that presentation in English as this is an international meeting, but when I came here I saw a great mock-up in the foyer area. You can also see it. Please play the slides. So there's this mock-up of that outside. The sustainability targets goals of the European Council are taken into account by the Marmara Municipalities Union, and they turned it into a form of mock-up, and it's in the foyer area, and this made me very happy. So this is the Council of Europe, which is based in Strasbourg, and this is the building. I won't go into the details because I said some before. So what's important here is to make sure that the institutions, the elected, the municipalities, the local administrators are brought together. Democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are the areas that the organization focus on, and also there is a condition for the local administrations. And one of the most important focal points of the Council of Europe is how democracy is practiced in local governments. In 2010, Turkey prepared its monitoring report, and our reporters from the Netherlands and Sweden are now in Ankara, and they're making contacts with the respective institutions such as the municipalities and also NGOs and local governments. So these sustainable development goals have always taken the people, the citizens, to its core. So you can see that outside also there's this element to fight against poverty and also making sure that people live in a healthy environment. And this goes the same for any age of person. Education is, of course, is a sine qua non, and to ensure that everyone has access to education is a must. And gender equality in Council of Europe, we had a quota for at least 30%, so 47 countries. In the delegation of each country, we said there should be at least 30% of diversity, I mean women included. This maybe was the other way around for the maybe Nordic countries, but for the other countries it helped to bring in maybe female administrators into the picture. And also because we know that the women at the local stages reach out to citizens more in certain aspects. So equal payment, decent work is another issue. Finding solutions for unemployment. These are what the local governments should do. And if we start doing such activities in the very roots, then we can take it upwards. So industry, entrepreneurship are the issues that the local governments should practice in pilot forms at least. And this is about reducing inequality within and among countries. You know, there are some groups like the Roma people, like the disabled, and some say the gypsies, and also making cities more livable, safe, resilient, sustainable. And as well, some studies that the Congress has adopted, and this is also related with the waste management of the municipalities. For example, we say the garbage is gold, and we can see similar works done by the municipalities in Turkey too, as Mesut Bey stated, in 30 metropolitan municipalities of our country. The 70% of the whole population of the country lives, and there was this climate change summit I participated too, and the young people now attaches great importance even to shake us to our core, and the earthquakes, the natural disasters, and also ensuring that the required work is done to ensure that everyone lives in healthy and safe and secure environments. And sister cities, cooperation. This is a picture from a past event. Hasan Bey, the mayor of Büyükçekmece municipality, was going to be with us, and also the former Zeytinburnu municipality mayor, a legend, was going to be with us, but they couldn't. This is the Turkish national delegation for 2019. Now we have a new delegation, and we have some activities ongoing. Now I would like to leave the floor to our audience, to our participants, if there is anyone interested to share ideas or ask questions, please feel free. It's 10:33, so we are planning to close the session by 10:45. We would like to thank you all very much. Anyone Please, if you are going to take the floor, make sure you use a microphone. Hussein Bey from Cyprus Municipalities Union. Let's hear from him how the municipalities are doing in Cyprus. Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator, for giving me the chance. I'm very happy to be here with us, distinguished participants. Panelists said a lot, and I agree with them. As a local administrator, we experience the same things. Think of a country as of its geography. It's facing challenging. There are wars ongoing around it. The country itself is divided. There is a truce. There's this republic, the Turkish Republic. It's not officially recognized, but the local governments in the Council of Europe, with the guidance of Gaye, Ms. Gaye, and also with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're trying to engage in diplomacy. So we have been experiencing exactly the same problems you mentioned before. Thank you very much. Thank you. In Council of Europe, yes, the southern part of Cyprus is a member, and the Northern Turkish Republic of Cyprus is not officially recognized, but they participate with two participants. The Cyprus municipalities mayor and Gaye district mayor participate to the Council of Europe meetings actively. So we had a political maneuver and said that the monitoring committee, yes, arrived in Cyprus and watched the local governments in Cyprus. But Ms. Ahmet Bendi, the chairperson of the Cyprus Municipalities Union, said, hello everyone, can you see me? Can you see me? And they said yes, and he said, you see me, but you don't see me in the Cyprus reports. And he said, I am the chairperson of the Cyprus Municipalities Union. We also have our municipalities, but these are not being monitored. At what stage are we in terms of the Council of Europe? How we should move forward? And we said, the Northern Cyprus municipalities hadn't been observed, so we should organize a meeting in Cyprus, Northern Cyprus, and invite the Council of Europe members there. So we should be more visible. I always have this motto as express yourselves. If we don't make ourselves visible, if we do not explain, if we do not break down that fairness, people won't see and know. And in January, with the Municipalities Union of Turkey, we will hold a meeting and we will invite the members of the Council of Europe and take some steps forward. So this is the international diplomacy, an example of it. So in terms of Cyprus issue, we have such sweet kind of interactions, I should say. Anyone else who would like to take the floor?
Thank you very much. My name is Volkan Topçu. I'm an academician in Yalova University, and previously I worked for the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, and then I moved to academia. When it comes to local diplomacy, I would like to raise a question. The urbanization policies could be used as a policy of the general politics itself. Don't you think the ministries could take care of this issue? Don't you think the national policies need to work hand in hand with the local administration? For instance, since I worked for the Istanbul municipality, Istanbul Municipality offered counseling to Lahore of Pakistan. And I know that there are some technical efforts ongoing. And I believe such a strategy could be followed in the other fields as well. Another remark is that I'm holding a PhD on local diplomacy, and when it comes to administration, I believe we are missing at some points. Maybe the unions, the municipalities could get into interaction to cover the missing points. Whenever there is this foreign delegation visiting us, we might go through huge problems. Or else, let's say that when a student group visits Istanbul, we have to go through some important diplomatic steps, and unfortunately, these steps are not covered. Thank you. And I believe the perception of the foreigners is of utmost importance to us. Well, I wish there had this common communication point in the municipalities. Maybe we can hold such conferences, or maybe European Union could take care of this. Maybe the governors could take care of this issue, or the Ministry of Environment could take care of this issue. When it comes to information, we go through huge problems. I do agree with you. Okay, we can act together, but when it comes to the exchange of information, we are lagging behind. The point that you mentioned is of utmost importance. In recent years, in the academia, we have offered some seminars on negotiation techniques and the meeting etiquette. Of course, we are targeting our own diplomats. However, based on the demands of the public institutions, we have held a series of conferences and seminars. I do agree with you in the sense that whenever foreigners do visit us, we have to be very careful in order to promote Turkey in the best manner possible. We have worked in coordination with Istanbul Municipality, Antalya Governor, because we take our, we take the people who visit us to Antalya as well. As the ministry, we do our best, and we will continue doing our best. And we will endorse you as long as we create the required atmosphere, because the importance of the perception surrounding Turkey is ever increasing, and we are ready to do our best as the academia in an attempt to support you. I do agree with Mesut. However, I would like to make an additional comment. In terms of capacity building, I feel like we are lagging behind, because each and every institution or each and every elected mayor is doing his or her best. What we have to do is to guide the related people in the best manner possible, because in the end, it is the people who guide the system, who manage the system, so we have to guide them. Since the municipalities are ever changing, we cannot make our culture sustainable. I think we should have more good-willed activities in place. That's why Maruf 19 is very much important, because public diplomacy or local diplomacy is a difficult subject. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your PhD, but I'm sure that your topic will evolve in time, because you will see that it's not that easy in Turkey. On the other hand, there's this other side of the coin, Gaye, I totally believe in the following fact. Each and every city is unique, and each and every capacity is unique. If there's too much centralization, then you won't be unique anymore. That is why public diplomacy is a very sensitive issue. Antep, Antalya, İzmir, İstanbul, Kütahya, Çorum, these are all unique cities. But if you ask me which one is more authentic, then I cannot answer it that way. And sometimes coordination is more exaggerated, and what I mean is that it's a very sensitive issue. Well, you should be an authentic city, and there should not be limits that surround you. But based on my own experience, from my own experience, I can tell you that probably it won't happen overnight, and probably we will succeed in the upcoming 15 years, not tomorrow. My name is Nazire Diker. I'm an academician in Yıldız Teknik University in Urban Planning Department. I attach huge importance on this topic. In my PhD studies, I took chaos theory as a subject. I started with chaos theory since everything got complicated. And I analyzed the organization processes. This is a theoretical field. Do you think we can get some clues from that and apply it in management? And I try to develop a synergic energy model. And the main principle over there is to find living structures within chaos. They get organized. The similar ones get together, and the new communication channels develop through similar ones. That's why what Bülent has mentioned, I mean, developing projects on common topics and creating a synergy at common points, overlaps the scientific findings. Synergy can be created that way only. And this process gets organized on its own. You have mentioned it very well. The municipalities get organized from the grassroots, and the international systems. The NGOs also get organized in a similar way, and there is the state institutions, and I think the NGOs and the state authorities need to find a common ground. It's not a different management structure, but maybe we could find a more organized management, and I still hold the same belief, and I think it can happen on its own. I have find similarities between the urban system and the human brain. There's this neocortex, which is in charge of the decisions, and it is also in charge of creating a vision for the future. I think the other parts of the brain do function in line with this neocortex, and this is where we are moving towards. There is this vision creating units and the other coordination units that have to work together. If we can succeed in doing so, of course, it will start with the grassroots and will reach a global level. And the similar ones will make projects together. It will get easier for the similar ones to make projects. That would be my contribution. Thank you. What you are doing is of utmost importance. Maruf is a great organization. Thank you very much for holding such an event. We have had great synergy over there, and we have succeeded in being in the evolution.
Merhabalar, Hande Günaçtı. Orta Doğu Teknik Üniversitesi Kentsel Politika...
Hande Günaçtı. I'm an MA student in ODTÜ, METÜ. My point is that actually I have a question for you. You talked about tourism as a basic instrument, and we always say that tourism is of utmost importance. However, when we have a look at the policy documents, especially the Development Plan 10, 11, and the Turkey's tourism strategy, there are 15 brand cities. And the methodology is not that clear as to how these cities were determined. I penned an MA on this topic, and to tell you the truth, I did not have many findings. There are some cities like Çorum, Antep, who have worked hand in hand with the development agencies, and there are some other cities that did not do anything. Personally, I believe that the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and the other ministries do not agree with one another. The strategic documents of different ministries do not overlap. So what is your take on this topic? Well, to tell you the truth, I believe we are in a learning process in Turkey. I don't have any negative remarks. As Bülent and Mesut has noted, we believe we can cover this distance. It took us 10 to 15 years, so I don't think we are in a horrible situation. However, the potential is scattered, and you say that there are 15 brand cities. When I visit Çorum for Hitit University, there are two things that I meet. First, Turkey is isolated in the world, and Çorum is isolated within Turkey because the macro problems do have repercussions on a micro level. Hattusha, which is one of the first civilizations of the world, has become isolated in the sense that only 20% of the people who were born there visited the city. I think this is not a missing point. Maybe we can succeed in closing the gap in a span of 1 year with the support of NGOs, civil society, and we are a society that learns very fast and that gets institutionalized very fast. From the experience of the EU, we can draw lessons and we can generate information. However, we have to be patient. It's not the case, I believe. Maybe it has to do with our genes. We're not that patient, to tell you the truth. Secondly, we have to be more open. I believe we can get through the problems. I mean, although there was a financial crisis in 2008, we did not go into bankruptcy because we drew lessons from the 2001 and 2002 crisis, and there was a huge wave of migration. Though we had some challenges, we observed all these people. These are good indicators in the sense that we can easily come up with solutions as Turkey. As for the brand cities that you have mentioned, I believe there is this trend which has started 5 to 10 years ago, and I think we can get rid of the challenges and the uncoordinated efforts between different ministries. It's a great point, and I'd like to extend my thanks to you. I would adopt a different approach in the sense that I don't want to go into cliches. Of course, the coordination system between the ministries could be better, and the local could be coordinated with the national. However, urbanization, the growth of the cities, and the management do carry us to a different point. And the central democracy will follow the local actors in the upcoming period. So the local administrators will be the main actors in the field of environment, climate exchange, sports, and the rest. You have to heed to the local administrators when you would like to develop a top-down policy. So I think the planning culture will be turned upside down. Normally we had the state planning institution, which was set up in 1960s, and it would go for central planning. It would be based in Ankara, and all the policies would be determined, and the policies would be announced to all across Anatolia. The same culture is still ongoing. Of course, it is on a more participatory basis. However, I believe this understanding will change. For instance, the elections in Istanbul have changed the trends. There is this French example, English example, British example, and the rest. So I believe the actors of the city will be determinant people, or the policies of the cities will determine the country policies. That's what I can tell you. Last but not least, I would like to make a couple of remarks. The problem that you have mentioned involves the diplomatic processes, and it has to do with the diplomatic processes happening in a very rapid way. When you make a central decision, you have to follow up all the processes, and the problems might change very rapidly. That's why you have to act in a very swift manner. That is why the local actors who feel the problem in their bones will gain in ground. In Turkey, an institutional jealousy is unfortunately in place. That's the reality of Turkey. Unfortunately, even between the units, there is this jealousy going on. The institutions do not want to share the information they hold with the other institutions. As an academician, I might state that I do understand the problem that you have encountered, in the sense that the institutions do not want to share the data. That's why the different opinions or the different policies do come up. But it is in our hands to get through this problem due to the technology and due to the speed that we have to cover. With regard to Hattuşa, I have a remark, and I would like to share a story with you. The people who are from Çorum might not be aware of the fact that each and every year we hold a program, and each and every year 60 to 80 young diplomats are invited to our Young MUN program. And we take them to Çorum Hattuşa in the very first week of the program. Maybe the Turkish people do not visit Çorum, but each and every year we take the young diplomats to Çorum Hattuşa within the Young MUN program. We take them to Antalya, Çanakkale, Istanbul as well. But in the very first week, we take them to Çorum. So as the academia, we support Çorum and do our best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, now it is time to close the session, and I would like to close today's session. Thank you very much. I would like to extend my thanks to each and every one of you. I'd like to extend my thanks to Özcan and Mr. President. Thank you for all your contribution. We have taken up great topics. Now we will move to the to Çamlıca Hall for the closing session. I wish you every success. Thank you. Have a nice day.